Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Wednesday spiritual stream. We are once again online. I know it's been a couple of weeks, and I apologize for that. I've been having health issues, and hopefully, my health issues will not get in the way of the rest of the programming for the week. Glad to see everybody in the audience. Pflugerville, yeah, you were first. I got that. You're here now. I want to welcome my special guest, the professor. How are you
Hello,
doing,
everyone.
professor?
I'm doing pretty well. Pretty well.
Right on. So I understand you sliced your thumb down to the bone today, putting on a metal roof.
I did. Just cut it real wide open.
Well, that's why God made super glue, right?
That's right. That's the cure-all.
I did the same thing when I was laying tile back in New York. How long ago was that? 2012.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Cut
still in
my
the
thumb
Army.
down to the bone, wrapped it up real tight, went to the hospital. I was like, yep, I was a combat lifesaver. I know how to take care of a wound.
I
They
feel
were like,
that.
well, there's nothing we can do about it. If you had come in with it gaping open, we'd have given you stitches. So, all right, whatever. I got this taken care of. No worries. So
Saved
what
you a
we're
big medical
talking
bill.
about today is Shintoism. Next week we swing back around to Western religions. We'll talk about the Church of Latter-day Saints, the
Oh,
Mormons.
boy.
Oh yeah. Hey. But once again, I could not get a Shinto practitioner to join us, unfortunately. So
There's not many in the United States.
oh, there
So
should be quite a few, actually. I mean, there's a couple of temples. Every time I call, though, it's like, hey, I do a YouTube channel and we're doing spiritual stream. And they go, oh, I don't want to. Okay. I'll do what I can then. Hope not to screw up your religion. Hello, Thomas Potts. Thank you for joining us. All right. So, where do we start? Shintoism is an ancient prehistorical religion. It's been practiced in Japan since, the BC era, right? Like 6,000 or 8,000 years.
Yeah, since the Yahweh, that's the official time that it was began, is about 300 BCE, whenever everybody was really like, oh, that's a new religion. So, or at least us Westerners. So.
But Japan had been closed off to Westerners for a very long time, starting, 11th century, I think?
Indeed.
Yeah, so for like 500 years, they weren't allowing any Westerners into Japan.
Oh, no, they'd actually kill Westerners on sight.
Yeah,
It didn't matter where you were from. If you were from somewhere else, they would kill you.
But that doesn't have anything to do with Shinto.
No, definitely not.
That's just the emperor being the emperor, not allowing Westerners in. He may have made a good choice on that point, actually. So, Professor, what does Shinto actually mean?
Shinto actually means, if I'm getting this correct, it's been a day or two since I studied some Shinto, but Shinto is the way of the gods. That is its
the way of kami is actually what it means.
Well, kami is God in English, or gods.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, so the way of the gods, and I just keep thinking of it as kami because there's so many gods.
Indeed, and kami is actually both singular and plural. So there's no definitive between the two. kind of interesting on that point.
Yeah. So I think of it as the way of kami because you're worshiping nature, but you're also worshiping deities at the same time. Now, Shinto was formalized in the 6th century.
Yes.
And why was that? Do you know why?
I do believe that it was actually due to the Buddhist monks coming in. They came in a little prior to that, and then during the Meiji era, they actually formalized it and made state Shinto, if I can remember my history correctly.
Yeah, what they did, they separated Shinto from Buddhism and Taoism. Both Chinese, Buddhism actually started in India, but it was a Chinese influence. And so, to mitigate the Chinese influence, they formalized Shinto and separated it from the Buddhist and the Taoist philosophy.
Indeed.
And so they get to keep their nature gods. They get to keep their formalized religion. It actually became the state religion for a long time. And I think only in the last 120 years is when they opened up Japan. No, since World War II, so only 80 years.
Yes. It's only been 80 years. Shinto is still the primary religion in Japan.
Right. 80% of people practice Shinto. Now, here's the thing. Here's what's really interesting about that is that Shinto doesn't interfere with other faiths.
No.
Like, you can still be a Buddhist and practice Shinto at the same time.
Yes,
You can
indeed.
still be a Christian and practice Shinto at the same time.
Yeah, that is because of their core teachings of family respect, respect toward others, extreme honor, etc., etc. Shinto actually teaches a lot of like your Buddhisho and all your martial arts over there, etc., etc. It bleeds into Japanese culture, and in fact, people have said that one cannot exist without the other because it is so intertwined now.
Now, let's go ahead and move on to kami. What does kami mean? It's not just the gods. It's a worship of what?
The spirits, phenomena, holy powers, etc. That are venerated by the religion. So they could be elements of the landscape, forces of nature, qualities of man, or qualities that these beings express.
Yeah, you'll see a natural outcropping of rock and go, oh, that's kami. I can worship here. This is a sacred place.
Right.
And then also you can use a priest to use as an intermediary between the spirits and yourself, and that is also kami.
Yes. Kami are also manifestations of Masubai, which are the interconnecting energies of the universe. So that is like one of the biggest things about Shinto.
Thomas Potts, no, kami does not mean communist. In this case, it's Kami, kami. It's the worship of nature and worship of spirits. Now we're worshiping spirits in Shinto. What is the significance of worshiping ancestors?
They actually become Masubai. So they actually become part of the energies of the universe that tie everything together. And by venerating your ancestors, you can actually tap into that and draw them to you. They become kami themselves.
Okay.
So they can actually help you. I hate to reference a Disney movie in this, but a lot of people will know it. Mulan, whenever they're doing that, except that is in China. It's a completely different form of it, but that is very similar to like the venerating of your ancestors. You learn from them, and they can still teach you through their energies that they are portraying out through the Masubai.
Yeah, and if you do not respect your ancestors, if you're not taking care of your ancestors on anniversaries and things, that's when they become less friendly.
Yes, and they will make your life a living hell until balance is restored. They will do that.
So ancestor worship or ancestor respect, I guess, is
Yes.
a better way of saying that. In the Shinto belief system is very important.
Yes, because family respect is actually one of the keys of Shinto. So you have to respect those. And you definitely don't want to be cursed.
Hello? Oh,
Hello?
I think we lost the professor there for a second.
Oh, am I back now?
Or that's me. Okay, that was me. I hear you now.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh man.
Whoa, that's loud. Okay, let me turn my headset down real quick. Whew.
I don't mean to yell in your ear there, Mr. CCDB. I apologize.
I got this.
But you
My
don't want.
system's messed up. My camera's not being recognized right now. I tried to figure it out.
Ooh.
Not that I want my camera recognizing me. But when I want to use my camera, I want it available. It drives me
Right.
crazy. All right, where were we at?
We were
Oh,
discussing
okay.
ancestor worship, or family respect, rather.
I think we beat that horse to death, don't you?
I think so.
Let's move on to Isanagai and Isanami.
Sanadai and Asanami, huh?
Those are the traditional mother and father deities of the Shinto religion. They got together, right?
The sun and wind gods? Is that who you're talking about?
Well, the sun, yeah, the sun and wind gods, yeah.
Amaterasu and Sasano are the actual names for those.
Okay,
Well, those were the original. I apologize.
I'm a Westerner. Hello.
Yeah,
But
no, those were that
they
was the
got
sun goddess.
together. They got together in heaven and looked down on earth and went, "What land are we going to use?" So they threw the spear of heaven down and fished around until they found the island of Japan. Right?
That is one way of doing it. Yes, that is in the Nihon Shoki, which is actually one of the only books on Shinto, other than the Kojiki, which is a little older. Record of Ancient Things is what Kojiki means, and the Nihon Shoki is the Chronicle of Japan. So
Okay,
yes,
so they created Japan for what? In order to create worshippers, or just to, make a place safe for humans to live?
whenever they created Japan, the way I was taught, anyway, whenever they created Japan, And this is actually now I know who you're talking about. You're actually discussing the creator gods,
Yeah,
which is Izanami and Izanagi.
that's what I just said.
Yes, yeah. No, I got confused for a second. All right, there are too many gods here. All right.
Oh, I know.
Um,
It's a pantheon I couldn't keep straight. I can tell you
yeah.
that. Because
Because
each shrine has their own specific god to the neighborhood that shrine is in.
yes, it gets kind of crazy. Which are the Ujigami or the Uji, which is the specific clans, and the clan gods are the Ujigami, and it gets complicated.
Yep.
Which Izanami and Izanagi actually created Amaterasu and Sasano. And also Tsukiyomi, which is the moon, god of the moon, to give light to the darkness, etc., etc. Um, there's actually, how I was taught, there's actually no confining reason why they actually created Japan or anything really. They just did. It's kind of really weird in that way. Um,
So it wasn't a way to create worshipers. It wasn't a way to create a land for humans that
um,
they could bask in and say, "Look what I've created." It was just they did something, and that's what happened. Japan
yeah.
showed up.
Um, in one of the stories, Izanami created a world for their beloved, and they worked together on it to create a thing of beauty to show how much they um, were devoted to each other, etc., etc. There's so many different stories at the beginning of Shinto. It,
Now,
it
Izanami actually died, right? And then
yes,
Izanagi failed to bring her back to life or save her.
yes,
And that was one of the curses at the beginning of Shintoism.
um, yeah. That was due to, I do believe, the fight between Sasano and Amaterasu. I do believe that happened, um, and I could be incorrect on that. I really could be incorrect on that. Due to
this
the
really this really is one of the most confusing religions I've ever studied.
yeah, no, it is a very very convoluted but interesting at the same time.
Oh yeah.
Um, so um, the fight between the gods and the deaths and et cetera, of them actually is represented in human history. Um, the between Asano and Amaterasu is actually um, taken by historians as the victory of the Yamato clan, which is represented by Amaterasu over the Azumo, which is represented by Sasano. So humans, or the mortals, can tie events to Shinto, like historical events, to Shinto through their stories. So it's kind of very, very convoluted in that way because every tribe, every clan has a different telling of Shinto because there is no written word of Shinto.
Okay. Okay, so it's interpretive, really,
Indeed.
and infinitely adaptable in that way as well.
Oh, yeah.
Which
Um,
is why other religions, other faiths, don't ever really stomp on Shinto the way uh, the Christian church did in Northern Europe, right?
yes. It's because it's completely adaptable to anything that you want to do because you can directly parallel the spirits with other spirits of other religions, or everything has a spirit. So in Shinto, just because, say, like my gods would be the spirits of that area and representing those in that area, like the things that happen in that area, like storms, et cetera, you could actually take that and directly parallel it to Shinto.
Okay.
Because the spirits are gods themselves. So
Well, let's move on to a different subject.
okay.
We have even in Shinto, sin is recognized, but it's not recognized the way that Westerners recognize sin.
That is correct.
So, how is sin recognized in Shinto?
Sin, Shinto does not accept that humans are born bad or impure, but a soul is of purity, and you can get impurity. So, sin is anything that separates you from the kami and from the masubai. So, which is harmony. You have to portray harmony in your life, good and evil, light and dark. In the book, and to quote the book, in the West, we have a saying that cleanliness is next to godliness, but the Japanese conception, maybe closer to cleanliness, is not distinct from godliness. And that was by Brendan Toropov and Luke Buckles, who are actually two of the leading researchers on ancient Shinto currently. So humans are born pure, but sumi, or pollution, it can be physical, moral, spiritual, and it creates this impurity and creates this what we would call sin. Diseases, disasters. If you're not in balance, bad things will come to your life.
Yeah. Okay.
And that is the thing. Like, evil begets evil in Shinto, and the more evil you become, the more you your spirit actually can become a demon or an oni.
And evil is defined as an interruption of the daily balance in Shinto.
Yes.
So if you start unbalancing your life by embracing evil, then you are sinning, and that is making your soul impure, which is bringing you closer to the edge of, well, to put it in terms that I understand, demonic actions.
Yes. In fact, that is exactly what it's doing. Your soul can either become kami, it can actually become, hold on, let me find it right here in my notes. I wrote this down. Obaki, which are ghosts, or it can become oni, which are evil spirits or demons. So it can actually become any one of those.
Okay.
And what you want is you want to become kami. You want to become one with Masubai. To become one with harmony, to create the harmony of the universe. But in Shinto, there's also an understanding that evil must exist for good to exist.
All right.
And yes, Kara, your teapot has a spirit.
Teapot has a spirit.
Everything has a spirit because the spirit of creation lives inside created things.
I've got Mando Merc on the stupid Twitter. Where is he at? At least I thought I had him on here. You know what? Screw it. There's only a few of us in the chat anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and post this. Anybody who wants to come up and discuss, just don't interrupt while we're actually discussing the finer points of Shintoism.
Trying to understand the finer points.
Trying to understand the finer points.
This is one that is extremely convoluted and not a lot of people understand it. I don't even think practitioners understand it because there's no definitive way to understand it. There just isn't.
Now, there is an island between the Japanese mainland and Korean mainland, and it's called Okinoshima. Are you familiar with that island?
A little. It's also called. I'm not even going to try and say that. I will butcher the shit out of Korean. Oh, sorry.
Hello, is that
Apologize
Thank you
for the
dropping by. I appreciate it.
apologies for the
This island is it's a sacred island, and the ancient mariners from Japan used to stop by and leave offerings to the gods for safe travels between mainland Asia and the islands of Japan.
Yes.
There is one person who lives there full time, and no one else is ever allowed to stay there. They have to be ritually cleansed prior to stepping foot onto the island. Hey, Night Breeze. Hello, hello. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it. They have to be ritually cleansed prior to stepping foot on the island. And so there is only one person, one priest specifically, that lives there full time in order to take care of the sacred rock outcroppings and things.
Yes. It is known as the island where the gods dwell, if I remember correctly. The unspoken. What else did I learn? There's a lot. Women are not allowed on the island at all. At all. They cannot go.
That's something I didn't know.
Yeah, they are not allowed to go, and if they are caught on the island, it is not nice. They are executed in a very nasty way. We won't even. But yeah, coming on and off the island, nothing can be removed from the island at all.
Right.
You cannot remove anything from the island, even a blade of grass. If it is disturbed, you are looking for a world of hurt because you have just angered the gods immensely.
I don't understand the mindset that creates a sacred place like that. I really don't. But
it is because it's supposed to hold the 3 daughters of Amaterasu.
I also don't believe that the Vatican or Vatican City is a sacred place either. But that's it's a personal choice to believe or not believe. So I guess it's okay. But
the Vatican is a beautiful building. It is an absolutely beautiful building, but it is very cold and non-welcoming.
Hello, Anastrena. Did I say that right this time?
Anastriana.
I'll get it right eventually.
That's okay. So I had to deal with a puppy emergency. So I don't know if you covered burial practices.
Not yet. You want to go into
Okay,
that? Go
so
ahead.
yeah, okay, so I told you that I was like, I don't even know what that is. So I've been reading, and the most interesting thing I found, honestly, so far about Shinto is that okay, two things. um, the one thing was most Japanese people don't tell, like in polls and stuff, they're not going to say that they're religious. They don't say that they practice Shintoism. Um, but most people do in some way. But it's not like a religion, it's just a way of life, apparently. Um, kind of.
Yeah,
that's
the
that's how they
balance.
feel. That's how they feel, right?
Yeah, the
Um,
balance of life.
right. Yeah, and like I typed in, it said it was more of what should be done in your life and for those around you, and just everything than what you believe in, which was really cool for me too to learn that. Like that was amazing. But burial practices, so um, there's all of these milestones and blah blah blah, and people can quote unquote practice Shinto, but most people are still buried in a Buddhist ceremony. I, I,
Well,
I think
yeah,
I think
the
I think it goes into like the Shinto stuff. Like it's impure to deal with the dead. So giving it over to the Buddhist, you know, side of everything in the country is kind of really neat. It kind of really seems like the Buddhism and the Shintoism go hand in hand in this country, and I find that fascinating.
it is pretty interesting actually. The most recent statistic for how many people practice Shinto in Japan is 80%, but you've also got like 30% Christian and 70% Buddhist. So it's
That's a big percentage,
oh
all
yeah,
added up.
yeah. But remember, Christianity was only allowed in for the last 80 years. So it's, well, even less than that, 75 years, I guess. Wait, am I doing my math wrong? Is it 80 years or 85 years?
I don't
Oh,
think so.
I can't
let's see,
math.
45, 75 years. Okay. So just for 75 years, Christianity's been allowed in to proselytize. So for 75 years, getting 30% of the population is pretty good.
But all your percentages don't add up to 100. So are these people doing all three? Are they doing two?
Some of
Or
them are,
you know
yes.
what I mean? Yeah. And that's what I find really, really fascinating is that, like I said, if they're going to Shinto temples and honoring the ancestors and everything, but then their their family members are actually buried in a Buddhist ceremony. Um, I didn't really quite get the whole reason behind that. I want to look more into that, but um, I mean, there are some traditional Shinto ceremonies for burial and stuff that do happen, but I did, I read that most of them are Buddhist ceremony for burial, and I want to look more into that because that was just so interesting to me that it just seems to very they meld together very well.
It kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense just to, see the difference in um, what people think are important following certain religious practices, certain spiritual practices. So yeah, that is fascinating. We can actually move on. We talked about the priests being intermediaries between humans and the spirit world. Now, one of the biggest things is sharing food with the deities in a sacred space. So, let's talk about that for a little bit. Lots of major religions have sacrificial offerings and burnt offerings and things like that. In this case, you're actually through a priest sharing a meal with a deity.
Yeah, that is actually a very common practice in a lot of Eastern religions. And that is because priests are a conduit. And that's how they look at it. So anything you give to the priest, you're essentially giving to the kami. So that is actually a very, very common thing in a lot of Eastern religions, Buddhism,
So,
Shintoism,
do
Taoism.
you think that practice actually came from Buddhism or Taoism or something like that?
I think it did. Whenever Buddhism first started coming over to Japan, and they began to allow it prior to the Meiji era, whenever it was banned, before it was allowed again, priests of Shinto, they were given housing and food because they needed to keep their energy up to battle the impurities. And that's what the priests of Shinto were. They were warriors against the Oni, against the demons. And not just the Oni, but other evil spirits as well. The Ogagi, if an evil spirit was infesting your home, you were expected to feed and take care of this priest while he worked his mojo, more or less, to expel this being from your home.
Yeah.
And by doing so, you invited the kami into the home so that they can help battle this evil spirit.
Okay. And that actually moves into the next subject I had. It's called shamanism. And that is one of the priests taking on a persona of a kami.
Yeah, channeling massive energy that is very common in all religions, actually, is to channel the divinity or the divine through you. Shamans just are generally a step above your run-of-the-mill Western religions by doing so. They channel the will of the kami and channel it through seals and magic, what they would call magic, in order to battle evil spirits or perform miracles. There are a lot of stories in Japan of a priest going into an area that was like just rife with devastation, crops drying up, etc., and them being able to call upon the spirits and the spiritual energy of the land itself and the spirits surrounding them and turn the entire area around. I do believe one of the most famous priests was Soho Chanami, or Soho Chanami. who actually is said to have defeated one of the most powerful evil spirits in Japanese history and turned the entire well-being of Japan into a positive influence, because Japan was going to, I think it was there was a problem with Mount Fukushima or something of that nature. Anyway, Mount Fuji, and it was going to erupt or something of that nature in the story, and he actually turned it all around by summoning the energies and placating the god Fuji, which is actually the god of Mount Fuji. So,
Is that what Samurai Jack is based on?
oh, I think so.
I'm just curious because that sounds really familiar.
It is actually a common tale in a lot of religions. One man standing against like a hero standing against a great odd, etc., etc. But yeah.
All right, and I've only got one more subject to go through, and that is the actual shrines. Now, when you see documentaries and videos and things like that, you see these elaborate shrines that are created to the Shinto faith or the Shinto way, right? Or the way of the kami. But the original shrines were modeled after farmhouses or grain silos or something similar to that. And you've got two examples: the Esau shrine, which is rebuilt every year using natural materials, all wood, and it looks just like a farmhouse from the sixth century. Versus the I can't remember the name of the town that other one is in, but it's like a 3-story tower, and they do a weird tea ceremony on the steps every day. I can't remember the name of it though. But you've got those two different. You've got the dichotomy there of the different types of shrines that were used, that have been used over the centuries. And you've got the simple farmhouse shrine, and then you've got the great big, 3-tiered, what you're expecting to see in Eastern religion kind of a shrine. So how does that happen? I mean, how does it happen that you go from a simple farmhouse to something that's 3, 4, 5 stories tall and towering over the farmstead or the community?
The main difference between the two is, well, first off, materials, ease of materials, ease of building skill, etc., etc. But it all depends on what you want it to be. Shinto shrines can be anywhere that's spiritual to the kami, and they're generally built at that area. The 3-tiered, actually, what I was taught going through my classes, it's the 3-tiered Shinto shrines were meant to hold and house the kami, like in them.
Okay.
You can have multiple shrines, sub shrines, etc., all throughout these really elaborate places. There are some that are absolutely massive.
But it's all built on a spiritual center.
Yes, there's a balance where Masubai connects. I guess I should start calling them ley lines, because that's kind of what they are. But a single Shinto shrine can have innumerable amount of shrines on them, and it can even create it can cover several thousand acres of land. Mount Fuji is a shrine in and of itself, and that is a very large mountain. I don't know if you've ever been to it or anything, but it is a very, very large mountain.
No, I've never been to Japan. I've never been to Korea either.
Korea.
My 18-year career didn't span the Eastern world.
But there's a lot of things that go into the shrine itself. The tori, or the entrance of the shrine, which is marked by tori gates. The Shimawa is a rope that you'll find all throughout, just short pieces of rope. And it's often hung between the uprights of the tori. And it can also be used to mark things, etc., etc. The komanu, and those are generally entrances that are marked by guarded or statues of dogs, and they're meant to guard against these spirits. Of these dogs are meant to guard against evil spirits.
Oh, temple dogs.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I've heard about temple dogs. They're supposed to be some of the most spiritual animals in the world.
Yes. Great protectors. There is the Temazuya, which is actually the purification site, because it is wrong to go near a kami in the state of impurity, because your impurity can actually affect that kami, and can make it impure. It can hurt that kami. The sando, or the root that goes through the shrine itself, actually holds a Temazuya so that you can cleanse yourself before you begin your journey throughout the shrine itself. There's the Honden, which is the main hall, the Haiden, which is the worship hall, and the Hayden, which is the offering hall. And it could be separate rooms or even separate buildings on the same shrine. And then there's the Shintai, which is where the kami is. It is the symbol of the kami itself.
And most people don't ever see that.
No, most people never make that journey.
Right. It's mainly the temple priests and things that go into the, what I would say, holy of holies, but
yes, the holiest of holies, right there. That is the good way to put it. There's also the Heheku, which is a stick with hanging streamers placed vertically in front of it. Which
that's
is actually
used to purify the pilgrims coming into
the actual temple. Yes.
Yeah.
It symbolizes the presence of the kami, and only is carried when the kami is in procession.
Okay.
But it can also be the Shintai or an offering to the kami. The more it purifies, the stronger it becomes. And the stronger it becomes a perfect offering for the kami. And it can actually channel its energy through the Heheku to actually cure people, cure people of maladies, cure disease, unleash its power to help an entire area, etc., etc. That's why it's so important in the Shinto shrines itself.
All right. Right on. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap this sucker up. I know we've only just scratched the surface, but
and not even a fraction of the surface.
Hi. It's enough as it is.
Yeah, no, there's so much. I am listening and looking, and it's a lot.
So next week we go into the Church of the Latter-day Saints. We'll go into the history of the church, Joseph Smith and Brigham Young and things like that. And I'll see if I can get someone from the church here in town to actually come on to the live stream. I can't guarantee that, but
I'm sure that you can, man. They go and knock on everybody's doors, so I'm sure.
Hey, if you don't get anybody, I have a couple of people that we know that might be available.
Okay, right
so,
on.
Possibly, so let me know.
Okay, cool. So, final thoughts across the panel. Professor, what do you got coming up this week?
Due to life events, I haven't been able to put out a video as of yet, and I got in touch with another creator that was creating things that was really similar to mine, and we might do a collaboration on some of the things, but I don't want to step on his toes, so I'm actually changing it to myths and monsters. So we're going to actually do like historical myths and the monsters behind those things, like great artifacts, etc., etc.
Cool.
And I'm trying to talk him into letting me do his makeup into a monster for one of his streams.
That might happen.
That's cool.
It'll be totally bad and totally hilarious. I'm just not ready. I need a filming studio, and I can't do that until other stuff happens. So I'm just banking ideas and maybe banking videos and just having fun.
Cool. Well, I think I will actually renew my pain stream come tomorrow. And then, of course, my Bible study on Sunday mornings. So, with that said, it's been a great time chatting with you guys and learning a little bit about Shinto.
And when is your stream? Is it still going to be 10 o'clock?
It's going to be 11 o'clock for us. I adjusted for daylight savings time for the rest of the country.
That's so nice.
Ain't I, though?
Yeah.
Arizona's the only right place, but...
Yes. Most of Arizona. But, okay, 11 o'clock tomorrow.
Sunday. Well, yeah, 11 o'clock tomorrow for pain. 11 o'clock Sunday for Bible study.
Right, but I don't do those.
Sarai.
But I'll try to make it to the. I'll try to make it to the pain one tomorrow.
Okay.
That'll be cool.
Thanks for joining us. And y'all have a blessed week. I'll see you later.
You too, buddy.
Bye.